but, you know, there's no sense in looking back on it. It's just we're moving forward. So, and we appreciate everything he's done, obviously.
We did try to sign Tyreek at a certain cost. Once it gets past that, now you can see what we're doing here with the players we brought in, and we feel they're very good football players.
There they are, Marcus Spears, Jeff Saturday. Hello, gentlemen. Hello. So good to see you from a distance. Thank you for being with us this morning. We're going to have some fun today. I'm going to start with you here, Marcus. More significant departure. Would you go Davante Adams or Tyreek Hill?
Oh, I went back and forth on this.
Yeah.
Molly Q. What's up, Jeff? I go Tyreek.
What's up, mate?
And the reason I go Tyreek, what's up, big dog? The reason I go Tyreek is because I've never seen this Kansas City Chiefs offense without him. I don't know if they are as explosive. I don't know if Patrick Mahomes is going to be the same quarterback that we've watched up into this part of his career without Tyreek Hill. I know Aaron Rodgers is an MVP before Davante Adams. I know Aaron Rodgers is going to play well. I also get concerned about Mahomes last year turning the football over. And every time I think of a critical moment in the Kansas City Chiefs season or a play that needed to be made, it was either Travis Kelce or Tyreek Hill. And I'm not sure if Kelce's ability to operate was because of 10 being out there and his ability to get over the top of defenses and take over games, not only with speed, but just putting the ball in his hands. So, look, I know what Davante means to Green Bay. I understand how him and Aaron Rodgers had that cohesion and that synergy, and I know it's a huge loss. But when I look at this Kansas City Chiefs offense and I think about where they've been, and sometimes their I won't say inability, their stubbornness not to run the football, which I saw Green Bay go to Arizona when Arizona was hot during the season last year without Davante Adams and a number of wide receivers and was still able to manage and win that football game. I just don't know that about Kansas City because I have not seen them without Tyreek Hill and Patrick Mahomes in that offense creating fear in the heart of people, because not only do you have to worry about him, you got to worry about Travis Kelce underneath, which I think benefits a lot from having Tyreek Hill on that roster. Those are my arguments.
I'm the complete opposite, Swagoo. Listen, I appreciate Tyreek Hill. He's a heck of a ball player. I get all that. Andy Reid has produced some really good offenses, and he'll find a way, whether it's with Smith-Schuster, Kelce. I mean, you can keep going down the line. He'll continue to find guys. They may even go out and get another guy. Green Bay is at a completely different point for an organization. It is win now, win now, win now. And when you let the greatest tandem between QB and receiver in the league and you let 50% of that walk out the door, that's a big problem, and it's extremely significant. And here's the thing about Aaron Rodgers. He is an incredible quarterback, MVP, all that implies. He also is one of those guys, and I've played with him, who loves the rapport and the trust of his receiver. So there's a reason why he's never had a rookie receiver have more than 38 catches. It's because he loves to know exactly where that receiver is going to be, when he's going to be there, and that he's going to make the play that Aaron expects him to make. As you've watched Davante Adams and that relationship grow for so many years, you've seen in the biggest moments, it's not between Kelce and Hill like it is for Patrick Mahomes. It's one dude. He's finding one dude, man, and that dude always is in the right place at the right time. That is a very difficult thing to try to recreate, especially in a short window. And when you're talking about a quarterback who continues to threaten, not only he wouldn't be a Packer, but he might not play at all, that's a big issue. And so when you're thinking about Green Bay, especially in the NFC, where now is definitely the time. I'm with you. I'm just saying this.
Molly.
In the NFC, it's the best chance to win, and they've let that thing out the door.
I got him, Molly. I got him.
How?
I got him.
I'm waiting.
This is the first argument back. This is the first argument back from me being off. Molly, what conference did Davante Adams just go to?
Davante Adams is going to the AFC West.
AFC.
Okay.
Yeah.
What conference have we been talking about this offseason as far as AFC West being the gauntlet and where we expect these teams to come from. Molly, what team does Josh Allen play for?
The Buffalo Bills, AFC East.
So now you telling me that Patrick Mahomes losing one of the best players at the wide receiver spot in that conference where who we consider the best wide receiver just joined, Russell Wilson is in Denver, Justin Herbert is with the Chargers, and Tyreek Hill leaving Kansas City ain't the bigger loss? Your gauntlet is way harder than the one Aaron Rodgers is going to have to travel.
We haven't had the draft yet, though. Keep in mind, they got 5 picks for that receiver.
Molly,
so,
we ain't talking about the draft. We talking about right now.
Well, I'm just saying, 5
talking
picks,
about right now.
That's a haul.
Molly,
what's the best conference in football, Jeff Saturday?
Listen.
What's the best conference in football?
Best division's AFC West.
It don't matter. It's about which team. How is the significance? Hey, listen, Green Bay has a much easier shot at getting to the Super Bowl than Miami, right? Or the Chiefs, right? If you think about AFC versus NFC, does Green Bay have an easier road to get to the Super Bowl than any of those AFC teams? So if you lost the greatest duo in the NFC, you let that dude walk out your door, you now have put yourself from being the top team in the NFC to maybe 4 or 5. And you can't expect that same relationship to grow because you don't have those same picks that Kansas City has. And I understand Green Bay is sitting where they want to. They can go, they can compete. It's an arms race. But Aaron Rodgers takes time to build that rapport as opposed to Andy Reid getting back to that philosophy of getting the ball out of his hands and being on time. That's where the turnovers were created last year for Mahomes.
So until Davante Adams was traded to the Las Vegas Raiders, Tyreek Hill was considered one of the top receivers in that conference, right? Or a hard argument for one of the best wide receivers in that division. In that conference. And you telling me losing him in the same conference that just got way harder is not a bigger loss?
No. Absolutely not. Green Bay has to win now. Listen, even if both teams, even if you look at this from a long-term perspective, short-term or long-term, how quick, I'm asking you this honestly, how quick do you believe Andy Reid will get this offense back on track and get them back to performing and getting up to that level?
Jeff,
at the end of this season? Do you think by the end of the season they can be as good?
No, I don't, Jeff Saturday. I don't believe the Kansas City Chiefs offense can be as good as they've been without Tyreek Hill until they show me that. Until Green Bay shows me that they could be as good without Davante Adams. But my point is, what I think is the point of the argument is, it's a tougher road in the AFC. And you just gave away Tyreek Hill.
Significance. Listen, This might be Aaron Rodgers' last season. Green Bay has a chance, has a true opportunity to go back to the Super Bowl, correct? If you're talking about significance, when you lose,
easier road.
They don't have a Travis Kelce to depend on. They don't have a run game. They don't have another wide receiver or skill player they're going to depend on. MVS just walked out the door as well. So Cobb is going to replace it. So when you look around, they don't have the same talent as Kansas City has around their roster. This was the guy. This was the guy for the Packers. When he walked out the door, Swagoo, it put a huge hole. It is enormous for this football team. And this was one of the top dogs in the NFC. And now they become a top 5 instead of a top 2 because of that loss.
Marcus, you honestly believe the Packers have a better shot at the Super Bowl this season than Showtime Mahomes, Andy Reid, and 5 picks?
Making it?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No way.
Absolutely. Molly, are y'all not following me on how good this AFC is about to be? Yeah. We just saw the Kansas City Chiefs with Tyreek Hill not score a point in the second half against the Cincinnati Bengals. We're not even talking about other teams. I'm talking about they may not win their division. They may not win their own division. And now you got to go outside of that. Everybody
the
expects
Packers
Buffalo to
lost
be
to
the team.
Jimmy G. With Devontae Adams. Come on, Marcus. It's not like they made any noise. They keep losing the NFC Championship.
Thank you. Swagoo, if Tyreek Hill is on the Kansas City Chiefs roster this season, how much more of a chance do you give them to make the Super Bowl? Are they your number one? If Tyreek Hill's on the Chiefs right now, are they still your number one? And how far did they drop when you took them off of their roster?
When Tyreek Hill left the roster, I put Kansas City third in the AFC West.
And they were one before.
They were two. I had the Chargers one. I thought the Chargers actually ascended them before they got rid of Tyreek Hill. Because I look at that division,
so they dropped
and here's what I say, Jeff. They dropped one spot because I don't know what the Vegas Raiders defense is going to be. I got a lot of confidence in the Chargers defense now with Khalil Mack and J.C. Jackson and Joseph Day coming over. I got a lot of confidence in the fact that Denver is already a good defense. We all lamented that they were a quarterback away from being legitimate contenders. The Raiders may be better offensively than the Chiefs. That's a legitimate conversation that we're going to have as we come up on this season with the addition of Devontae, Hunter Renfrow, Darren Waller, and Josh Jacobs because they run the football as well.
Last word here Saturday, and then we got to move on.
Because of the most significant shift, and that was Devontae Adams going there. That's the only reason they're in the conversation. One team got significantly worse. One team got significantly better.
Tyreek left.
Thank you.
Tyreek left.
Now, though. It's because Devontae's there. Come on, you got to admit he got you a little bit on Vegas. You wrapped that up. That was a nice bow, Jeff. You should host the show. Marcus, just take that out.
The question is...
You're really not going to like me after this next segment. Trust me.
The question is the most significant departure.
Yeah.
The most significant departure is the departure of the team where the guys in the toughest path to get to the Super Bowl that's no longer there.
I don't know. You just made an argument for the Raiders maybe being better because they got Devontae. I don't know.
Thank you.
It all just
because of Devontae.
All right, let's leave it there.
But that's not what we arguing.
Getting started. Oh, we're already hot. Settle down. It doesn't get better than this. Duke versus UNC in the Final Four. But is this the best rivalry in all of sports? Don't miss that debate with the Tar Heel, Jeff Saturday, a Dookie, JJ Redick, and a Tiger, one Swagoo. LeBron has been shouldering the load for the Lakers all season. Now he's dealing with a bad. Is Duke UNC the best rivalry in sports? Jeff Saturday, you're up first.
Absolutely. This is without a doubt. Listen, you could make a slight argument back in the day for Celtics, Lakers. You could have some of these arguments, Red Sox, Yankees. Maybe, right? But Duke, Carolina defines all rivalries. Think about this. Think about the coaches, Coach K. Think about, Roy Williams. Think about Dean Smith, now Hubert Davis. Think about all the success that these programs have carried through over the last 50 years. This is every time these two teams play, throw the records out, it's on. Whether it's at Cameron, whether it's at the Dean Dome, you know these two teams are going to be completely ready to play, and the country is watching. Everybody who cares about any type of rivalry is going to be on this game. They're going to be betting on the game. They're going to be fired up for the game. I have been attendance at Cameron when we won and at Carolina when we won. So I know the excitement no matter where it is, how exciting these things are. It is by far the best rivalry in sport.
I'm going to co-sign that as well, Jeff. I'm going to co-sign.
Look,
bias aside.
Sure you would.
Bias aside,
Really
Duke UNC is the greatest rivalry in sports. There's been so many classic moments over the years, and a lot of these moments have happened in games where one of the teams wasn't particularly good. I think back to Jeff Capel's shot going against Stackhouse and Rasheed Wallace in 1995 to tie, and that game I think went into double overtime. Chris Duhan's little reverse layup at Carolina to beat Carolina that year when they weren't particularly good and we were the #1 team in the country. This game always matters. It always matters. It doesn't matter who's on the floor, what the rankings are. you're always going to get a high-level basketball game. The thing that makes this very unique, these two schools are, as we know, 8 miles apart. Auburn, Alabama, that's a great college rivalry, 2.5 hours apart. So when I'm living on campus for 4 years, this matchup, this rivalry was unavoidable. You know, week of game, I'd go get a bagel before class on a Tuesday, and the person who was giving me my bagel would say, "You suck. You guys are going to lose Saturday." This is on Duke's campus. This is on Duke's campus. My senior year, I lived right on the border of Durham and Chapel Hill, and there was a Jason's Deli. Shout out Jason's Deli on the Chapel Hill side. And I would go there for lunch all the time, and I would get harassed. People would be like, "Why are you in Chapel Hill?
Yes.
Why are you in Chapel Hill?" My apartment's a mile down the road. I can't get a nice turkey sandwich, a nice turkey club.
No.
This is to me the one of the greatest things that I got to participate in as an athlete. That I got to participate in this rivalry. And look, all 9 games I played against Carolina, 6-3 by the way. All 9 games I played against Carolina were so memorable. They were so memorable. One of the highlights of my basketball career, playing in this rivalry.
All right, Marcus, I have a lot to say, but where are you on this? Greatest rivalry in sports.
See, Molly, you know, I had to come back off my hiatus and whoop up on Jeff with the conversation about Tyreek Hill and Devontae Adams. I understand this from JJ Redick. By the way, it's great being on TV with you, JJ, for the first time. I completely understand this coming from JJ Redick.
Yeah.
Knocking down threes, making big plays. The affinity for Coach K. He's a Duke alum. I expect the same thing out of Jay Williams. Jeff Saturday, I am so damn disappointed in you. You have just made my morning worse. I was planning on having a good day. It's cold in Virginia. I was hoping that you would bring me some sunshine, Jeff Saturday, because you know dang well, man, Alabama-Auburn, the Iron Bowl, is the greatest rivalry in sports. All right, we talking about people actually spending time in jail because people loses this game. They had a guy go and kill trees. Y'all know that's a felony. Y'all know that is an issue that you cannot escape when you talk about Alabama, Auburn, Iron Bowl. I don't care about the distance, JJ. These people hate each other, bro. And when you walk into a stadium and it's 105,000 people, and I love basketball. Jeff Saturday could tell you, I think I know more about basketball than anybody. I love it. March Madness is my favorite thing to watch of any season that we have. But dude, the Alabama-Auburn rivalry, the things that go along with it, the pageantry of college football, especially in the SEC. You can move, like Duke, Carolina, universal. So is Auburn, Alabama. When it comes to sports and a rivalry, I will not, and I went to LSU, which it became a rivalry with Alabama because LSU ascended and got good, and obviously Nick Saban left LSU and went to Alabama. That became November 3rd, 5th, whatever the day is, it's a huge game. But the Iron Bowl, Alabama-Auburn, it ain't nothing like it. You talk about throwing records out the window. You talk about no matter how good the teams are, this is that one in college sports.
Okay. First of all, the question wasn't college sports, and this is cute. You know, the SEC, the ACC, very cute, but this is a national show. The Los Angeles Lakers and the Boston Celtics were tied for 17 championships. Are you kidding me? JJ, you're going to sit here with a straight face, having played all those years in the NBA, and you're going to go Duke, North Carolina over Lakers Celtics when we're talking greatest rivalry?
The history of the rivalry is certainly there, and there's been ebbs and flows to the quality of games in this rivalry.
Fair.
Like in the 80s, yes, one of the greatest rivalries in sports.
Thank you.
Certainly when Kobe was there and the big three were there with the Celtics, that was great. But there are years where the Lakers are lottery bound. The Celtics are lottery bound. These games don't matter. They don't matter. I have a couple comments real quick.
Sure.
Just first, I saw Jeff
People move
on an
on.
earlier segment, and I am absolutely shocked that he didn't change between segments and put a Carolina blue shirt on. It's a classic Carolina move. And Marcus, you bring up the word hate, right? The hatred between Auburn and Alabama fans. And my comment to that is, I've always felt that Carolina fans hate Duke fans way more than Duke fans hate Carolina fans. And the reason is that people that go to Carolina, and there's a lot of people in North Carolina that are UNC fans that didn't go to Carolina, but people in North Carolina and UNC fans all over the country, they have an inferiority complex. They have an inferiority complex, and that's just that's part of the rivalry.
Let's go. Inferiority complex. He's ready.
There
Stay
it goes.
ready. You have to get ready.
JJ, you wanted to see some gear? Look at the gear, baby. We don't miss. This ain't no missed opportunity. I was waiting for the best timed I could put it on, and this is it. You want to see that Tar Heel, baby? That's what it's all about right there. You see it. You know about it. We ain't scared of it. There is great hate from the Carolinas to the Dukies. You know it. I ain't mixing words. I hope we win that thing and put an end to it all. 24 runs at that Final Four. I'm hoping we go to that finals and make it all happen, baby. No doubt in my mind.
I'd like to say one more thing, and this is not really on topic, but it is on topic. I really question the selection committee's sanity this year, that they just decided that the ACC wasn't a great conference this year. I was at the Miami game in person in Cameron. Miami beat Duke. I was at the Carolina game, Coach K's last home game. I hate bringing it up. Obviously, Carolina won. Yeah. But in watching those two teams play against Duke, those are great basketball teams. Great basketball teams. How Carolina, second in the ACC, 15-5, with a bunch of NBA guys on their team, by the way. They have pros on their team. How they ended up with an 8 seed. How Miami, with a bunch of 22, 23-year-old guys that are third in the ACC, end up with a 10 seed. It's just wild to me. Poor job by the selection committee. Poor job.
Yeah.
Because they wanted this, JJ. You know what it is. You know eyeballs and money. This is monetary, big dog. And I can't wait to watch it. I love the rivalry. Don't get me wrong. But it ain't the Iron Bowl.
Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness! All right, we got a little bias. We got a little biases here. You're lucky I didn't bring up Yankees Red Sox, okay? Because that's another one I could make a strong case for. Let's get some picks here. Get everybody on the record. If we need to do a friendly wager, we can do that. Jeff Saturday, who you got?
Tar Heels. Are you serious? Don't even ask me. You know where I'm going. Tar Heels all the way.
I got Duke obviously winning 74-67. 74-60.
Duke, by the way.
Paulo is going to have a nice 21-12. It's going to be a good game, but 74-67. Duke, by the way, the execution down the stretch over these last 3 games has been phenomenal, and I'm going to expect to see that again on Saturday night.
Great.
See, and you asked why I didn't like Duke growing up. This is just case in point right there. Marcus,
Arrogance is the reason.
Yes, arrogance.
Exactly.
Yeah, you said it, not me. Marcus, who you got? Tiebreaker for me.
Say it.
I think I'm going Carolina. I think I'm going Carolina. I like Big Baycock on the glass on that front court.
Yes.
He dominated that last matchup. And listen, here's the thing, and JJ knows this. If Duke can knock shots down, then they should win the basketball game. But when they play Carolina at times, throughout history, it seems that they have a problem, and there is a top on the rim at times. If they knock shots down and Pablo does his thing, they can win this game. But I'm going to take Carolina because the last matchup, they dominated on the boards and on the glass, and I think that could be the situation again.
In honor of that Carolina pick, I heard that we have a Jeff Saturday photo that I might want to see. Can we pull that up before we go to break quickly? Oh, there it is.
Oh.
There it is.
Where's JJ picture?
We already have the JJ picture. He used to comb the hair down. Now it goes back.
I don't have any midriff bearing shirts.
No
sorry,
crop
Mark.
top?
I'm disappointed in your pick, by the way. I'm disappointed in you. Disappointed.
Very little discretion.
I thought you and I were going to agree. I thought our first segment together, you and I were going to agree. Disappointed.
You thought wrong.
Midriff.
Yeah, crop tops. No more crop tops. All right, let's keep it going, guys, here. A lot of questions surrounding on those Spurs. Crewed up right now. Monica back with us. JJ and the one and only Brian Windhorse. Windy, great to have you with us. Monica, I'm going to start with you. Should the Lakers sit LeBron at this point?
Molly, what's up, Wendy? It's good to see you. I said this as soon as Anthony Davis went down. What is the actual point? And this, for me, comes in tandem with LeBron James himself saying that he wants to continue to play basketball until he can play alongside his son and make history in that way, which would be pretty cool, but is not going to happen next year. And so, to me, LeBron James has nothing to prove in my mind. Like, I know this is probably not his way, but he has nothing to prove and more to protect. And so this Lakers team ain't been doing nothing since December. Why? Just why?
So LeBron has played more minutes this month than he's played in any month in 8 years. The last time he played this many minutes per game, he was in his 20s. That is a real warning sign, but it's also an indication how much he still wants this. Even though their chances of doing anything this season are very slim, this is who he is. He's always wanted to do this. Now, my thing is, even if there's somehow, the 7th seed is gone. There is no way they're getting that. The only thing they're getting is the 8th seed. If they somehow get that, they get the Suns, who are beasts. Beasts. I respect LeBron and AD. I just don't see how you're beating them 4 out of 7. So if I'm LeBron, I'm weighing. AD's coming back. I never back down. I'm going to keep fighting with. I got a bad ankle and a bad knee on the same side, and I've already played 41 minutes a month, this whole month, or 40 minutes every game this month. It's not as simple arithmetic.
Before we jump in here, JJ, is any of it self-serving, though? In terms of passing Karl Malone, personal accolades, his own legacy, even if the Lakers don't go anywhere? Why stop playing?
You could call it self-serving. He could call it being competitive.
Okay.
I think.
But you get the gist. I'm talking about his own personal accolades versus the team's success.
Yeah, and I do think he's getting joy. He said last week, I'm having the time of my life. The Lakers are circling the drain, having one of their most disappointing seasons in team history, and he's saying, I'm having the time of my life. That is somebody who is, again, you'd call it self-serving.
Yeah.
You could
Maybe
call it
not
being
the best
competitive.
choice of words, but you get where I was going with it.
Molly, to that point,
Yes, sir.
I don't think it's right that we, as the media, are going to get mad at players and teams for load management and resting guys, while simultaneously knocking LeBron for wanting to play basketball.
Fair.
That seems a little unfair to me. I don't think he should sit. I think he should manage this injury as he would any injury, as should AD. I think those two guys should come back. Frank Vogel said it the other night. They're out of time. And these two guys on the basketball court, yes, it gives them a chance to win. But this team, as I've said all season, has just been so poorly constructed. I think all this is a moot point. I really do. I think if the Spurs want the 10 seed, they can get the 10 seed. We look at the Lakers' schedule the rest of the year. Not sure if these two guys are coming back. I think there's a good chance they don't even end up with the 10 seed, even if LeBron plays. So to me, this is maybe even a moot point. That we don't even see them in the play-in game.
I think back to when Kobe was trying to get the Lakers into the playoffs, whatever year that was, 2012-13.
Yeah.
And he's playing like 45 minutes, night after night. And the Laker fans are adulating him as he's trying to drag that team. And he's playing on a sore Achilles. And it wrecked his career. And I'm not saying I can see him in the future. I'm just saying that when you've seen something like that happen, and I'm telling you he's playing the most minutes he's played in a month in 8 years, it just makes me worry. It's not a commentary on his competitiveness or trying to judge him. It's just being worried.
Monica?
To that end, Wendy, he's going to be a Laker again next year. So for me, this is more about the long-term play as opposed to this season, which we all acknowledge has not lived up to expectations and is not going to suddenly turn around at this point. In my mind, there's an argument for everybody get healthy, I'm not sure how much can be done in terms of adding pieces or detracting pieces from this roster as it stands. But this year has already been a wash, and he's going to be a Laker again next year. I have the utmost respect, but I called for him to chill out a month ago.
There are some comparisons, though, between that Lakers team in 2012, 2013, and this year's Lakers team. That was the Steve Nash, Dwight Howard, Kobe Lakers team that never figured it out. And this team, again, has never figured out. And some of that, of course, is, LeBron's had some injuries, AD has some injuries, but both of these teams have just completely underperformed relative to expectations.
Yeah, real quick before we go to break, in terms of construction of this roster, do you think the Lakers should move on from AD next season?
No, I don't think they should. And LeBron, when healthy, is still playing at elite level. AD, when healthy, can still be an all-star level player. They've proven that they can win together. To me, it's all about the ancillary pieces. They gave up so much. They gave up so much to get Anthony Davis, whether it was draft picks, rotation level players like Lonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram, who now is an all-star. Then this offseason, they elect to not re-sign Alex Caruso, and they gave up all their wing depth to get Russell Westbrook. So it's not, to me, it's not about Anthony Davis and LeBron James. It's about all the ancillary pieces around them that just have not been constructed properly.
This is a catch-22. I don't see how they improve this roster dramatically. I don't see how they do it. Unless somebody out there says, I want to be a Laker and don't want to make much money. They can't even 100% re-sign Malik Monk. They signed 10 guys, 9 of them, 8.5 of them didn't work out. The one guy that did work out, I don't even know if they can keep him. That's how hamstrung they are. I don't know how they're going to do it.
I think the only way potentially to do it, Wendy, is to entertain moving on from Anthony Davis. Listen, after their run in the bubble, he and LeBron James post-championship, good spirits, good vibes. There was sort of this acknowledgement that AD needed to be the next guy to push the Lakers ahead, and LeBron was still going to be there, driver, passenger, but maybe look more like a driver's ed car in which LeBron actually was still kind of driving. He's not been available. And as much as I don't want to punish him for his injury history, the best ability is availability. And I'm with you, JJ, in that when this idea was first circulating, I think Stephen A. may have been the first person to say it. I was like, oh, no, not yet, not yet. But can you maximize LeBron if you are entertaining possibly moving on from AD?
All of this sort of, answers the first question. When your point about how they improved this roster in the offseason without moving on from AD, they have made this bed. They have to lie in it. So we shouldn't rest LeBron. We shouldn't shut down AD for the season. Because guess what? This is probably as good as it gets for the next couple years.
Ouch. It's true but fair. That's true but fair.
All right. Great stuff. My esteemed colleagues here, quite the crew. This was fun. Wendy, Monica, JJ, stop going to Carolina's delis, okay? Find some delis on your own turf, all right? Moral of the story today. That's what I got. All right, when we come back here on First Take, regular season Lamar hasn't translated to playoff Lamar just yet. So how much should the Ravens be looking to pay their quarterbacks? Swaggo and Booger have some answers. With the NFL making adjustments to the Rooney Rule, we'll discuss what the league's top priority should be to expand diversity within its ranks. I'm talking ethnic or racial minority, that according to the policy adopted by NFL owners during their annual meeting, and will be paid from a league-wide fund. The coach must work closely with the head coach and the offensive staff. Joining me now, ESPN special correspondent Angela Rye. Angela, good morning to you. Marcus Spears and Booger McFarland will be joining us shortly. Angela, I want to start with you here. How impactful is requiring a minority offensive assistant in this fight?
Well, they've essentially created a new position in the corporate world. Folks would call it a fellowship. It's something that's being sponsored by some other entity. And in this instance, the National Football League, and not necessarily by the owners' investments themselves. So I wonder the efficacy of this strategy long term. I think that it's a great first step. I do question, particularly when you look at the history of affirmative action in this country and its efficacy. if whether or not expanding the minority category in this situation to include women will help or hurt folks like Brian Flores, who, of course, we know sued the NFL earlier this year. We know that this is an outgrowth of this, and they've made a dozen changes to the Rooney Rule over time, including just last fall when they ensured that now coaches would have to interview 2 minority candidates for head coaching roles and 1 for other positions. And so I question if it's enough to just check that interview box, or if it really is about long-term change in the NFL.
Yeah, Angela, this is, first of all, so glad to be with you. This has always been my stance. There are 30 white owners in the NFL that really run this league, along with Green Bay, who is a committee, and Shad Khan, who is the owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars, who is considered a minority, well, is a minority owner in this league. But when you look at the overall arching problem, and I understand that these are supposed to be fixes or coaxes to what the issue is, it really boils down to those men, those women that are in ownership positions in the NFL to fix this. The onus should be upon them. That is what I have been saying for years. The league, we always say the league, the diversity and inclusion. And obviously, if you're a body and you're a representative of the NFL, you want to try to enact these things to create change and make this a more diverse and inclusive culture and give opportunities. But ultimately, what is at the heartstring of these owners? Do they really want to see diversity and inclusion in the NFL? It will always come back to that. I understand it. And I kind of operate off this mechanism, Angela, and you can speak to this after I make this statement. I've always believed that in order to change something where people have ownership, give an example. The owners own the mountain. The mountain is the place with all of the resources. Only the owner of the mountain can change how business is done. So I continually want to hear from 30 owners, 30 white owners. I want to hear from the ownership in Green Bay and Shad Khan from the Jacksonville Jaguars, and tell me how they want to change this. As opposed to us always putting Roger Goodell out there or some other committee or some other person to try to identify and rectify the issues that are going on with the NFL. These owners know just as well as you and I, Angela, what the damn problem is in the NFL. And they have to be the ones to change it and fix it. I get it. We have to enact things. We have to create the Rooney Rule because it's already a problem. You facilitate where you got to interview minority. That guarantees nothing. I want these owners to come out and guarantee something about diversity and inclusion. The president at ESPN, Jimmy Pitaro, does. He makes statements about diversity and inclusion within this organization. The heads of ESPN, they make statements about diversity and inclusion because they can actually change it, and they have done a good job at changing it. I want the owners to say something.
Yeah, and I think the issue in this particular situation, you talked about, for example, the owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars and wanting him to say something. Well, he has. He hasn't necessarily said it at the NFL, but he was the primary investor for the Black News channel that just refused to pay all of its employees after filing bankruptcy. So you have people that say things in other ways. Sometimes it's through hot mics, and sometimes it's through something as egregious as that. And so the reality of it is interviewing is exactly what we say it is. It's interviewing. It is consideration. And in some instances, again, according to Brian Flores' lawsuit, it's not even real consideration. So if it is a method to check the box, and so long as Roger Goodell, who you just brought up, is content with offering up changes to rules but not enforcing those rules, we'll continually have this same conversation. If there is no accountability attached to the rules that are laid out, and they can have meeting after meeting and revision after revision, if after recruiting they interview and it stops there, they don't worry about the hiring, they don't worry about the retention, and they're not worried about penalizing folks who don't meet the standards and who are not accountable to diversity off the field. They care about diversity as long as it's making the money on the field. But when we get off the field, what will we do? When we get into some of those offices, the business offices, and into some of the strategic decision-making power that owners, GMs, and other executives have, even the coaching staff, we're going to continue to have this same conversation. And so I'm with you that we need to see changes from the owners, but if there is no penalty from the league, the owners will continue to do what the owners do.
Guys, let me just jump in here really quickly and ask a couple follow-up questions from layman's term here. So, Angela, I want to ask you this. When we're talking about essentially a fellowship, creating a new role, this offensive assistant coach, is this even a step forward, and how would you have liked to see this role handled?
One, I think it is time for us to separate out kind of the historic, systemic racism, oppression, and discrimination that each respective protective class has experienced. So I would not group, one, I hate the term minority, just as an aside, but I would not group women and people of color in the same category. They have a responsibility to women, particularly the women who watch the NFL, and they also have a responsibility to the players to ensure there are coaching staff and executives who look like them. And those are two separate issues. And I think that they can make intentional strides to ensure that people of color and women are represented. But by virtue of this particular rule, I'm actually disheartened by it, because I think they're saying, all right, we just got to hire one of them. And I think that's not okay, particularly because, as I said, it's more like a fellowship position. It's an on-ramp, because they're not really seeing the qualification of women and people of color to be ready and primed to fulfill these roles already. It's like, we're going to give you this kind of assistant role to see if you can ever measure up to the standards of the white coaches we're used to hiring.
Marcus, let me change subjects to you, because there's a few things I want to get to. We only have so much time here. But you mentioned ownership, and I'm looking at this right here. It says they publicized a mission statement to encourage and attract diverse members of prospective ownership groups. The statement read in part, the membership will regard it as a positive and meaningful factor if the group includes diverse individuals who have a significant equity stake and involvement with the club, including serving as the controlling owner of the club. The statement does not require minority participation in ownership groups. Marcus, what does this even mean? And is it accomplishing anything? And it says the first test case will be the Denver Broncos and how they handle their sale.
Yeah, Molly, I've always contended that the Rooney Rule within itself, the fact that it need to be implemented, and we know we're not naive as black people, that you have to have legislation and rules enacted in order to create a semblance of equality and give people opportunities to move forward in whatever that construct is or whatever that system is. And Angela made a point about this fellowship potentially, but I see that differently. And we would have a discussion about that, because in the coaching ranks, offensive guys, offensive assistants, offensive people in that role from a football standpoint are the ones that's being promoted. Now, this will put the NFL on onus. If you get minority coaches, black coaches, women in these positions, and they do a phenomenal job, and the success, like we've been talking about, that the Kansas City Chiefs had, for example, with Eric Bieniemy, the success of his role and how that is immediately impacted on the field, and you don't see coaching hires, then I'm with Angela. We revisit that conversation. But that opportunity is something that I believe needs to be implemented, because it puts black and minority coaches, women, in a role in which the hires are actually coming from. If we look at this last cycle, it's offensive coaches being hired at crazy numbers as opposed to defensive coaches. The other part of this, Molly, is with the committees and the groups and the things that are being put together. We all know you need ownership. How many times have we said representation and a seat at the table? Right? When you have, and that is actually, and why I've enjoyed listening to Angela Rye for so long, that is actually the utopia. That is where you want to be in order to have the best product that you can have. And I get it that this is not the cycle of thinking from owners in the NFL. They're used to doing business one way. It's a good old boys club. They all get together in sunny Florida and they talk about how much money they're making and how well the league is doing. They implement some changes to some rules. They have diversity and inclusion conversations and committees. But ultimately, if you don't have anyone in that room to not only give a different perspective, but to enact things on their own to give minorities an opportunity, to say this is not a fair playing field. This wasn't a fair playing field before I entered myself into this ownership group or this pack that's been created. That is where significant change happens. I go back to when Jay-Z was hired on, and it was a mixed reaction from the black community. It's like, Jay-Z tying his hands, he making money. The other part was, need a seat at the table. Somebody has to be there representing what the issues are, what the things that we're talking about to try to make this better. So hopefully, Molly, and that's what we deal with. Hopefully that between these owners, they get together and say, hey, we do need an African-American owner in the NFL, because it's going to make us better. It's going to make our product better. It's going to open our eyes. And that's why I always try to tailor this conversation to going back to the ownership group. And you made a great point. They have say in who owns teams when they come up for sale. That's another issue that has to be talked about.
Angela, I want to give you the final word here, and you can go wherever you want. But what I was going to get to, so now they have this diversity committee. What should be their top priority to actually elicit real change?
I think it's about metrics of success. If there are not benchmarks put in place to ensure that owners are accountable to the league and there are penalties assigned when they fall short, I think that we're going to be right back here at square one. So the reality is the ownership conversation is a billionaire conversation. Most of us can't afford a seat at that table. How do you ensure parity there in a business, right? When you're talking about hires, how do you ensure that you're creating an environment where the team and the coaches feel like it's a safe place to be and stay, and they are being measured by the same wins and losses as the white coaches? The diversity committee needs to be considering those items, and hopefully they're not just happy to be there. We don't need any more people who are just happy to be there.
Yeah, and again, over 75% of the National Football League, the players themselves are African American, and obviously no owners. Angela, such a pleasure to have you. As always, a wealth of knowledge. And Marcus, you're not going anywhere. We will talk to you soon. Thank you both. When we come back here on First Take, the 49ers have made deep playoff runs with Jimmy G at the helm. So let me transition here, because I'm really interested in the Celtics, right? One seed in the East. Now let's go East. Now the injury to Robert Williams. How much does that hurt them?
This injury matters. It really matters. That five-man lineup that they have, Marcus Smart, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Al Horford, Robert Williams, has absolutely eviscerated opponents this season. They've got the #1 defense in the league, and a big part of that is Robert Williams, his rim protection. They really have no one on their roster that can defend the rim the way he defends the rim. Their defense is going to be fine. They're going to have still a very good defense, but they're really going to miss him. I don't know that this team can make the Eastern Conference Finals or the finals without him.
Okay.
With him, they're a real contender. So it's going to be interesting to see what his timeline ends up being.
So I go, JJ's taking over, so you can really go where you want, but we're kind of staying East Coast here. Where are you? Who do you have coming out of the East?
No, I don't. I want to kind of expound on what he said about the Celtics, Molly, because I think the Robert Williams injury is huge, especially when you start talking about playoff basketball, where getting to the free throw line is at a premium. And you think about how this season has been going along. When James Harden went over with Joel Embiid, we talked about that'll unlock Joel. Well, if you got that matchup, who's going to defend him? Who do you feel comfortable with? And then, too, watching the Celtics this year, and JJ speaks to this more, Al Horford can move away a little bit. You got a high screen and roll with two guys now. And we forget the athleticism of Robert Williams. I thought when he was coming out of Texas A&M, he would be an impact player defensively in the NBA. And when you talk about with Jaylen and obviously what Tatum is doing offensively, the fact that you lose a rim protector when you going into the playoff, this will not be the Warriors where they are shooting 53s a game. You're going to have somebody, not only defensive, offensive rebounding, but somebody that gives people pause when they want to get to the basket and athletic enough to defend these bigs. So I look at the Celtics right now as the team out of the East. I know what Brooklyn can be with KD and obviously Kyrie being able to come back and play, but I do not limit, when you get to playoff basketball, The contribution of a Marcus Smart, who just went off for 28, missing his stars against Toronto. The contribution that Robert Williams would have had defensively. You have to be able to play different ways as series materialize. And I think losing him is going to cause a huge issue when you talk about defensively against some of this high-powered offense that the East has.
Yeah, the two question marks for me when we get to the playoffs are going to be who's that fifth guy in the closing lineup for them? Is it Pritchard? Is it White? Is it Grant Williams, who's had a great season?
Grant Williams, yeah.
Like, those three guys are great players, but again, they're not answering the Robert Williams question. Of course, it could be Daniel Theis as well. And then my second question is, when you go against Giannis, when you go against Joel Embiid in the playoffs, you need Robert Williams. And whether it's as a direct matchup or coming over help side, you need his shot blocking, you need his rim protection against those two teams specifically.
Let me ask you guys this right now. So who do you like when we're talking? We got the Bucks playing tonight. They're playing Philly. We just talked about the C's, obviously the Heat, and then the Nets.
I feel like we're headed for a finals rematch. Marcus, am I wrong in that? I feel like we're headed for a finals rematch. The Suns have been the best team in the league all year. The Bucks, to me, are the best team in the East right now. I've said all season, Miami Heat have been great.
Yeah.
They have fallen off. There's something going on with that team over the last 2 weeks. When the Bucks' big three play, they're 32-9. When you mentioned the Nets, by the way, I'm going to say this. I don't see the Nets, without Ben Simmons healthy, I don't see the Nets winning a playoff series.
With a full-time...
I'm scared too, JJ.
Hold on.
I'm scared too.
Hold on, we're not glossing over this. Hold on. With a full-time Kyrie and Kevin Durant...
Yeah.
You know this squad very well. You know this area very well. I won't put you on blast. You don't have them winning a playoff series?
I took my 7-year-old son Knox to the Hornets game the other night. Great game. I have some real question marks about their defense. Some real question marks. And a lot of these teams at the top of the defensive efficiency rankings are in the Eastern Conference. Brooklyn, I think, is 22nd in the league this year in defensive efficiency. Yes, Kevin Durant is an all-world player. Kyrie Irving is an all-world player. Those guys can get buckets.
Yeah.
But there are real question marks about their defense.
Okay, Marcus, before you jump back in, you went too far ahead, though. I wanted Eastern Conference Finals. So you gave me the Bucks, and then you gave me the Phoenix, and then you kind of evaded the actual question. Who's playing the Bucks in the Eastern Conference? No, you didn't thought I said, because you had about 10 teams. So let's narrow it down right now with the information you currently have. I know you don't want to answer it. Who's playing the Bucks in the Eastern Conference Finals now that the Nets aren't even winning a playoff series with Kevin Durant?
It's a great question, Molly. My issue with giving a good answer right now.
Just answer it.
The Celtics.
Thank you.
Bucks Celtics.
Thank you.
But again, there's so much uncertainty around the seeding in the Eastern Conference where there's a little more certainty right now in the Western Conference seeding. So we can kind of predict right now first round matchup, second round matchup, etc. But yeah, I think the Bucks and Celtics are the two best teams in the East.
I won't hold you to it. Marcus knows everything on the show's fluid. Stephen A. started that, so that protects all of us. Marcus, I'll give you the final word here. Who do you have coming out of the East? And what do you think about him saying the Nets aren't even winning a series? Okay.
That doesn't send me over the hill with what JJ just said. Look, defense in the playoff, we know. Like, think about what Giannis did last year. Defensively, it takes defensive plays to win series and win championships. It takes those moments for you to have that guy to come up big. And I look at Giannis and Middleton, and especially if Chris Middleton is knocking down shots mid-range, he's becoming that offensive weapon when you're garnering all the attention as Giannis. The Bucks are just so difficult of a team to defend when their big two is going crazy. And not to mention, y'all, what we watched from Giannis last year in the playoffs, he's going to do that again. What indication has he given any of us that he won't be that same type of player in this playoff run and trying to get to the finals? This team is more experienced. Other role guys understand their roles a lot better. And defensively, they get after you as well as anybody in the NBA. And they have an MVP candidate that is going to up his level of play in the playoffs. I got the Bucks coming out the East.
I saw a great graphic the other day.
Really?
talking about Giannis's mid-range. And every time I come on here with Stephen A. And I bring up the Bucks, he has all these question marks about Giannis, as if the guy didn't close out the NBA Finals with a 50 ball. With a 50 ball. But anyway, I digress. The graphic.
Yeah, talk about the graph.
The
really
graphic.
interested in the graphic.
No, this
Please
graphic
tell me.
showed his mid-range field goal percentage year by year in his career. I don't remember when it started out. Low 30s. It has literally gone up every year in his career. He's up to 42%, which is well above average for mid-range basketball in the NBA. He's becoming unguardable.
Yeah, especially
he's becoming unguardable. His free throw percentage is up. Come on.
JJ, let's not forget free throw percentage.
Yeah.
Last year, people thought that they would put Giannis on the line and beat the Bucks.
Yeah.
Obviously, it didn't work.
Players are going to play great and lead their team to the Final Four.
Perez floats it. Brown Turner for the tie. Got it to go. This game is just sensational.
How could it be better?
Becker's jumper is
Gino Auriemma said, I've got the next Diana Taurasi coming. It's a kid named Paige Beckers, and I'm going to tell you this, in the overtime, I think I'm starting to believe it.
the streak lives, making 14 straight trips to the Final Four for the Connecticut Huskies.
They came to Connecticut for a chance to play in the Final Four, and we did.
Wait, what was that? The Connecticut Huskies? It's a shame Stephen A.'s not here. I don't think his college is in the Final Four, but I'd have to check. Monica McNutt, don't be outdressing me with that blazer. Good to see you, girl. And JJ Redick in studio.
Good morning.
Appreciate that. Good morning. Good morning. And we're going to have Jeff Saturday, Marcus Spears in a minute. A bunch of guests stopping by today. We're going to have a lot of fun. Stephen A. on vacation. I'm happy where we started, though. Don't worry. We'll get to Duke. How about those UConn Huskies, ladies and gentlemen? Double OT. Paige Buckets getting hot late to knock off one seed NC State, punch their ticket to the Final Four for the 14th straight time. Greatness, it starts at the top. Here's the GOAT, Gino Auriemma, on enjoying the moment one game at a time.
I think when you're younger, you think, I got a million of these left in me, and you get to a certain age then where you go, I don't know how many of these I have left. You don't know how many opportunities you're going to get to be in this game. It means more because each time you do it, there's a new set of kids that have never been there. And they came to Connecticut for a chance to play in the Final Four, and there's this overwhelming responsibility that you have to give them a chance, and we did.
Monica, we have a lot of incredible games thus far, a lot of incredible teams in the Final Four, both men's and women's. But would you say this is the most exciting game we've had thus far of March Madness with the double OT?
Oh, man, Molly. First of all, I'm thrilled that this is leading the show. And I think I do have to answer that question, yes. But I want to give a shout out to the Iowa-Creighton ball game that also came down to a game winner by Lauren Jensen from Creighton. But in terms of the stamina, the back and forth nature, we're texting with our researchers and our fellow colleagues at ESPN that cover women's basketball at the end of the game. And we're all like, I'm exhausted. I'm mentally exhausted from this ball game. It was incredible. And I must tip my hat to Westmore and NC State, the Wolfpack. They were not afraid of the moment. And it looked like at points during the course of regulation that UConn was poised to pull away. And of course, the huge shot that Jakia Brown-Turner hit to force the double OT, I believe. But ultimately, Paige Beckers, the comparison, I should say, to Diana Taurasi from Gino Auriemma himself. There is not a stage or a moment in which that seemed to ring eerily true because she was ice cold in the overtime period, and her running mate, AZ Fudd, as well. For them to be sophomores and a freshman, respectively, Paige a sophomore and AZ, a freshman, they looked like poised upperclassmen. They got to their spots. They were calm. They did not miss from the free throw line. It was an incredible display from the Huskies and overall an incredible ball game and what has been a very fun women's NCAA tournament.
JJ, I know you were watching this. What were your thoughts?
I'm biased, of course, and I'd like to say that Duke's win in the Sweet 16 or Duke's win in the Elite Eight against Texas Tech and Michigan State, those two games, would be the best games of the Final Four. And, of course, St. Peter's run captured the imagination of the entire country. But this absolutely was the best game of March Madness. And the main reason was the stakes. This was an Elite Eight game for a chance to get to the Final Four. Connecticut's streak was on the line. I was so impressed watching this game last night with the execution, the shot making, of course, the execution to get Brown Turner the three in the corner. But Becker's shot making in the second half was just incredible. UConn executed their inbounds plays. They got the ball to the right people when NC State was fouling. Becker's made her free throws. Just an incredible game. My only gripe with the game was that Gino did not have them foul when there was 6 seconds left in the first OT and up 3. I think that's pretty much universal now in basketball, that you try to foul while the ball handler's dribbling the ball. They had 2 opportunities to do that and didn't get that, and Brown Turner got a clean look. Monica, I agree with you, by the way. In watching this game, Paige was giving off major Diana Taurasi vibes, and it was impressive to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. Monica, before we move on, let me ask you this. So we've got South Carolina, UConn, Stanford, Louisville. Who's winning it all?
I have long gone with the South Carolina Gamecocks. They have been number 1 wire to wire over the course of the regular season. Aaliyah Boston should be the National Player of the Year. And I think the story, as we talk about incredible storybook endings potentially, like we're looking at Duke on the men's side. Yeah. Last year, the agony of defeat that was very graphic in public when they did not come up with the victory versus Stanford. And this same group essentially having the opportunity to run it back. I think they're incredibly focused. Now, I will add this caveat, JJ and Molly.
Okay.
They've struggled a little bit offensively at points. And all 4 of these teams, who is going to show up big and make shots? Because you've got 4 teams that can all defend very well. So somebody's going to have to separate themselves offensively.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's very hard to pick against South Carolina. They've been the best team all year. They have the best player in the tournament in Aaliyah Boston. They have a great coach in Don Staley. But let's not ignore Stanford. After Aaliyah Boston, they probably have the next 2 best players in the Final Four in Haley Jones and Cameron Brink. Haley Jones, of course, is the reigning most outstanding player in the Final Four. The question mark around them, can Cameron Brink stay out of foul trouble? If she does, Stanford has a real chance, chance to come away with their 2nd straight national championship.
JJ, I think you're right, but we could make the argument that Louisville's defense, considering some of the trouble that South Carolina has had, we could make the argument that Louisville will have a really great chance. Haley Van Lith, consecutive 20-point games in this tournament. She has been about her business. And we all just watched what UConn did. Yeah. And so if it comes down to both teams have played incredible defense, we just saw a display of not just Paige and not just Azzi, but Aaliyah Edwards comes up with a huge rebound that also helps UConn separate. And so which one of these teams has the offense that's going to separate? Because I know we're in for some defensive displays for sure.
There's great players and great coaches in this Final Four. Really exciting this weekend to watch.
Yeah.
I'm excited about this.
And then there's the greatest, and that's Gino Auriemma. But it's cool. It's cool. I'm not picking Duke either, so don't worry. In case you didn't know, I bleed blue, okay? We're moving on here, guys, to the pros. The Grizzlies, without Ja Morant, 18-2, no Ja, no problem, as they hand the Warriors the largest loss of the season, a 28-point beatdown in Memphis. A furious Steve Kerr was ejected at the half. Mike Brown took over coaching and calling for next man up.
Whoever is available to put on a uniform, they just got to go out and compete. And again, you know, sometimes it doesn't happen. At the end of the day, you know, we can't wait on Steph, we can't wait on Draymond, we can't wait on anybody. Whoever can put on a uniform is going to have to go out there and play, and we've done it before.
All right, Golden State's been struggling since losing Steph Curry to a foot injury against the Celtics, dropping 6 of their last 7, with last night's loss being their largest of the season. James Wiseman done for the season. Monica, I cannot believe I'm asking this, because early on it felt like the Warriors were looking like world beaters, you know, men amongst boys. But has the Warriors' window closed as serious title contenders with this revolving door of injuries?
Molly, the door is closed. Wow. And listen, this is not
aggressive on a Tuesday.
JJ. This is not about anything that these guys can or cannot do. It is just the reality of the league that we all love and consume insatiably. All three of the guys that are at the center of what the Warriors have done have missed notable amounts of time with injuries. While we hate to see players injured, that's a part of the game. It would be different to me, JJ, if these guys were still 24 through 26 now dealing with injuries, right? So they are all plus 30. They've all been injured. And quite frankly, the rest of the league, because they have been a gold standard for so long, has worked diligently and literally built rosters so that they can contend and catch up with this squad. And as you look around the West, it seems that it is working in sincerity. And so this, to me, is not a knock on anything that the Warriors have done. All good things have to come to an end. I just think the West is that deep and that dangerous, and injuries are real. If you're not on the floor, then you are not who you were over the course of the dynasty.
I don't think the window is closed quite yet. And I actually think this window could extend for another couple years. When we look at these injuries, they haven't happened simultaneously. And we all know that for the Warriors to be at their best, they need Draymond and Steph together. They need Klay out there. They need those three guys working together. Draymond came on my podcast a couple months ago, and he talked about this. Look, in a separate situation, Draymond would have found greatness. Steph would have found greatness. Klay would have found greatness. However, to reach their best, they all need each other. And so if we look at Draymond has said recently he feels great. Steph's got an ankle injury. There's some question marks there. Not anything he can't recover from in time for the playoffs. Klay has shown flashes lately of being the Klay that we all got used to for the last decade. So I don't think it's close. And the reason I think it can extend even further out beyond this season is because of James Wiseman, Andrew Wiggins, Jordan Poole. If we think about the Spurs run, there were so many times as those three guys got older, as Manu and Tony and Tim got older, that people felt the window has closed. And all of a sudden, Kawhi develops into an all-star, an all-NBA player. Danny Green develops. They get contributions from Tiago Splitter. They get a good veteran presence in Boris Diaw. All of a sudden, that window got extended another 5 years. Yes, the big three are getting older for the Warriors, but they have guys. James Wiseman, can he develop into an all-star? Can Jordan Poole, who's been on fire lately, continue to develop? Can Wiggins sort of, regain that all-star form that he had earlier in the season? This window can extend for another couple years, in my opinion.
Okay, so JJ, I hear you in theory, right? But do we at least agree that the rest of the West, the gap is significantly closing?
Oh, 100%. Look, this is not the Warriors that dominated the NBA in 15 and 16 before Kevin Durant. This is definitely not the Warriors with Kevin Durant. But as a contender, they are in that conversation. They still are in that conversation. They still have enough. And there's been flashes at times throughout this season. They've shown they can be one of the best teams in basketball. And look, the jump the Grizzlies have made, I don't think anybody expected that. Let's not rule out the Jazz. Let's not rule out the Mavericks or the Nuggets if they get guys healthy. Of course, the Suns are the best team in basketball. There's great teams in the West. But this window's not closed.
Hold on one second, because you just named a lot of teams. I want to move this forward. Right now, if you had to pick, you gave me like 10 teams. I mean, it's cool. I get it.
I gave you 4.
Okay, maybe 5, maybe 5. There were so many, I lost
4
count.
It's fine.
JJ,
4 other teams.
JJ, if today was the day, you're a betting man. Who's in the Western Conference Finals?
Well, I don't know the final seedings. The Suns are certainly going to be in the Western Conference Finals. The interesting matchup to me is if the Mavs, who I think are 2 games out of third place right now, if they get to the 3 seed, if the Warriors continue to lose games, and we see a Grizzlies-Mavs second-round matchup, there's a real chance the Mavs can advance to the Western Conference Finals. That's a good matchup for them.
Interesting.
If it's Grizzlies, Warriors
in,
in that second round, I think it's Grizzlies and Suns in the Western Conference Finals.
Monica, what about you? Who would you have today, Western Conference Finals?
I'm inclined to agree with JJ. I think that the Grizzlies are going to be all right in the absence of Ja, which to me, Ja is going to be able to be healthy and whole and ready to be explosive. I've had the Phoenix Suns coming out of the West all year, but the way JJ broke it down is the way that I would agree. And let me just say, this is probably not close, but I think for an organization, it is close, I'll say that. Because for an organization that is accustomed to being there, I just don't know that I see them there. Like, will they be top 4, top 5, great playoff team? Sure. But I don't know if I see them there moving forward.
Monica, I just want to go back to the Warriors really quick, because if you're arguing the window has potentially closed. So do you think Steph Curry is done winning championships?
Ooh. No, I wouldn't say done winning championships, but I think this iteration of these guys, I don't think that they're going to continue to be able to do it together. Listen, and I think it's interesting, JJ, that you brought up the Spurs, because I'm thinking stylistically of what that sort of 3 as the centerpiece was asked to do compared to Steph and Clay and Draymond. To me, I'm glad to hear that Draymond is healthy, and I hope that's sincere. But we can't ever undersell that he is still undersized at the position that he plays. Steph's game is so much movement. If you start talking about lower body injuries that tack up over time, like that's another thing. And while we've seen flashes of Clay, is flashes of Clay going to be good enough to the Clay that was a key component to what they once did? And so it made me think a little bit, but I just wonder, again, as the rest of the league continues to chase after them.
Yeah, stylistically, the Spurs played a bunch of different ways. There was a progression into whose team it was. It was Tim's team. It was a heavy post-up team in the early 2000s. Then it was Tony's team. Then it was Manu's team. Then it was Kawhi's team. When they beat the Heat, and of course they lose in 7 games in 2013. When they beat the Heat in 14, though, they're running like a spread pick and roll offense with heavy ball movement, attacking closeout, getting three-point shots. So they changed their style quite a bit. The one thing I want to just say about Clay is that I'm not thinking about this version of Clay that we're seeing this season. I'm thinking about the version of him a year out, 2 years out. Look, Clay's 30 years old.
Okay.
But we've got to give him time to get reacclimated. And generally speaking, with these very serious lower body injuries, guys aren't normal until 18 months after coming back. That's sort of the time frame. And he's been playing basketball now for, 3 months? So let's give him a little bit of more time to look like the Clay that we saw for so long.
Yeah, last word here, Monica.
I agree with you, JJ, and which is why I think we were excited to see Clay return, but you got to give it a little bit more time. But let me ask you this. Is there a Kawhi Leonard on their roster right now? Somebody that can be the next guy to lead it, in your mind?
No, there's not.
I mean, not Kawhi, but you know what I mean.
No, I know what you're saying. My point was, look, Wiggins has shown that he can be an all-star, and certainly when he played in Minnesota, he was a high-volume shot creator, so there's definitely talent there. Jordan Poole, we talk about Tyler Hero being the 6th man of the year. Jordan Poole will be in that conversation at some point if he doesn't end up being a starter. And then the real question mark, of course, is James Wiseman. Like, he was the number 2 overall pick. Can he become an all-star level player at that 5 position? That, to me, certainly extends that window.
Yeah, that was a huge blow, losing him. And the Celtics took a huge blow yesterday as well. Okay, Monica, JJ, sit tight. I'm glad that you're still repping your Hoyas. I know it wasn't your year, but as for you, JJ, I have a Tar Heel waiting for you.
Jeez, Molly, you too?
Listen, UConn to New Mexico State. I know the ladies are doing their thing, but listen, the men didn't have the best title run either, so not taking shots, okay? I'm with you. We'll keep it rolling. They'll both be back. To the NFL we go now. Tyreek Hill taking his talents to South Beach. The Cheetah, now the highest paid receiver in the NFL. Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs loaded up with 5 draft picks in return. Meanwhile, Devontae Adams, who led the league in receiving yards, completions, and receiving TDs, will no longer be catching passes from Aaron Rodgers. But his college quarterback at Fresno in Derek Carr, Devontae is a Raider. So what does that mean for Aaron in the pack? Here's Matt LaFleur and Andy Reid with more.
I think a lot of it was driven by Devontae, I would tell you. But, there's no sense in looking back on it. It's just we're moving forward. So, and we appreciate everything he's done, obviously.
We did try to sign Tyreek at a certain cost. Once it gets past that, now you can see what we're doing here with